So I'm really excited to be doing another episode of the Hair Tech Life podcast. And this time I get to welcome on someone who's kind of a personal inspiration, actually. Vanessa is coming on to talk to us today. I will let her introduce herself in a moment. But yeah, so I'm really excited about this one when we're talking a lot about not just the tech industry, but also about like being a founder. So I think this would be a really positive and exciting conversation, but I'm sure there will probably be some putting the world to rights as well. So I would like to welcome Vanessa. Vanessa, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Thanks very much for having me, Kat.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. So before we dive into all our topics and stuff, could you please just introduce yourself to our listeners? Because I know you've got a lot that you encompass.
I'll make it short. Hi, so my name is Vanessa Vallely. I'm CEO and founder of WeAreTheCity and WeAreTechWomen. But prior to that, I spent 25 years in corporate life, working across 9 different banks on various technologies. So the reason I set up WeAreTheCity was, if we roll back to 2008, when gender was on no one's agenda and diversity wasn't even a term, I was very frustrated at the lack of women around my leadership table. So I wanted to create something that would help women to find the resources that they need to progress in their careers. So in my mind's eye, that was a website, but I never really had much to put on because, as I say, there wasn't really much going on for women in 2008.
No, of course, yeah.
One news item celebration, but we put this out there as a free resource. We run a few events, 10, 20 women, and then bit by bit, I think because when I originally set it up, I never wanted there to be any financial barriers from inclusion. So from my own kind of socioeconomic background, I knew that there were things that I was prevented from doing in terms of my own further education because we just didn't have the money. And I didn't want, especially the kind of area that I was pitching at to support these women was where they didn't have any disposable income. So I didn't want to create something that was a membership model or that would cost them money. I just wanted to help women to quickly find the information that they needed, be it that a women's network, as I said, an event they can attend, an inspirational story. So that's where WeAreTheCity started its life and lived as a side desk hobby for the best part of kind of 7 years until, if I'm completely honest, I didn't fall out of love of tech. I fell out of love with corporate life. And every time I did anything with WeAreTheCity, I was like, oh my God, I just felt alive. So I decided to...
That's where your passion was. Yeah,
I decided to do my big job, which everyone was like, oh my God, is she crisis? Because it's everything I ever wanted, this big job in the city, fancy job title and all the trimmings that came with it. And all of a sudden go, actually, I don't want that anymore. Quite typical of me. I make very snap decisions sometimes. So I decided to kind of leave and then build out a suite of services, products that could help companies to attract, retain, and develop female talent. So that's where WeAreTheCity started. I think we had about 10,000 members when I actually left. I think there's about 70,000 now. We've just done a database cleanup.
Yeah, huge.
And then about 6 years into that, I created WeAreTechWomen. So effectively the same resource website, but purely for women in tech. So between the two of them, we do conferences, awards, research. Those websites are pumping with articles and bits of inspiration, new networks that are coming out. We do our big support campaigns and charities, promote where you can get free training, where you can volunteer. So that's where I spend most of my that's the career up to date. But I've also written a book called Heels of Steel, which I so need to write the next one, but it's finding the time.
Cool.
Public speaking as well in corporates across the globe, actually. Just trying to encourage people to drive their own careers and not wait for it to happen. So that's kind of what I do. Apart from that, two children in their 20s, 3 dogs.
Oh, lovely. I was just going to ask you to tell me a little bit more about yourself outside of work. So that's a good starting point as well. So obviously, you're a mother, you're a pet mum as well, which I love.
I love that. Hobbies wise, I do boxing. I love boxing.
Cool.
I do about 2 years, which is such an amazing sport because it teaches you to listen and focus and it gives you discipline. So for me, it was 90 miles an hour, got my head in about 5 different projects in 1 hour. It's a great place for me to go. So I enjoy boxing.
I guess you have to be very present and in the moment, don't you?
Yeah, and you have to listen as well, which I'm not always that great at. So I have to listen, you know, of what's coming in front of me, because I'm on the end of something quite horrible. So I love to box. I love to garden as well. It's something that makes me sound really old, but it's something I kind of got into. I find it very therapeutic and good for my own mental health. So, and I kill most plants, but I'm doing my best.
Me too.
Yeah. Apart from that, that's kind of what I do. I spend probably a quarter of my time in Spain as well.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So I go backwards and forwards from there. And again, it just breaks from the busyness of life and things that I'm involved in, I think, in the UK. You know, you need that kind of to get away, and I go off and I explore Spain, which I love.
That's lovely. I think sometimes as well, if you take yourself away, it means you can actually, you know, properly separate and rest and like take a break. It's too easy if you're at home to just carry on. Yeah.
The problem, I come back with if I go away for too long, my team's duck for cover, because if I've had too much time to think, I'll come out and I'm like, I've had this idea, and they're like, oh my god,
no. Come back sooner next time. You're giving us too much to do.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I love that. So you talked a little bit obviously about what inspired you to set up, you know, WeAreTheCity, but what kind of made you interested in, you know, becoming a founder, really? Because that's a very different kind of role to what you were doing previously.
I think people would have played out what that actually looks like and how hard that is. I don't know whether I would have done it.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Honest, I've most been about it.
Yeah.
It is a real difficult journey to be a founder. Starting off when you've got nothing, you've got no income.
Yeah, of course.
It's just you and an idea to build things that you hope that people will want, to try and build a community. I mean, we had a community before we have product. I don't really sell to my community, if that makes sense. I give them.
It's a very different
funding from the corporate. I mean, we have to charge obviously for tickets for some of our events because venues in London are so ridiculously priced. But we'll always have the option, you know, that we can give away for free and stuff. So I think it's just such a difficult journey. And also, I think when you're within a corporate and you're in that job, you've got that safety net. Even when things go a little bit wrong in the world, like we're experiencing at the moment around the whole kind of inclusion conversation.
Yeah.
You know, you can fall back into the world of work, but when, you know, it's your business, you have to constantly innovate and stay ahead of these big things that can affect you. You know, even you know, you think new governments that, you know, hike insurance and the impact that will have on business in terms of what they pay how they pay their staff. You know, so it's all these little things. It's never
simple, small businesses.
Never simple running your own business. And I think, you know, don't get me wrong, I love it, and I wouldn't go back to corporate, and I wouldn't swap it for the world. But there was a lot. I wish at the time when I started, I actually thought that I knew everything. Right, I'd done 25 years in corporate. Of course, I can run a business. I used to be a chief of staff. Right, I can do finance, HR, operations. I can do the lot. And then you're like, whoa, no one prepared me for this one. You know? So
the curveball of it,
was hiring your team, getting that right. You know, putting out products that will they work? You know, having relationships with your clients, and then they move on and you've lost that big chunk of money. It's never simple, but I'm lucky in the terms of some people run a business and maybe they're not passionate about what they do. Right? It's an income and stuff like that. I think how I get through it is I'm hugely passionate about what I do. And I'm hugely passionate about women and their progression. And I think it's more about a legacy than it is the bottom line of the business.
Yeah, I love that.
As long as I can pay the bills and everyone gets paid, you know, and about having a yacht in a marina, you know, it's never about that. Would be nice, but
it would be nice, but unfortunately probably not the right business for that.
I get a lot of job satisfaction. And again, as long as it kind of pays the bills, then, you know, best job in the world.
Well, I love that. So obviously you said it was quite a challenging journey. Could you talk a bit more about what some of the challenges that you faced were? Because it might just be helpful for people that are interested in really going on that journey to get a bit of a real perspective, you know.
I came right, like when we first started, we paid these two guys to build what is WeAreTheCity today, and we paid them £900 and they disappeared. That was the
oh my gosh.
So my
That's
husband,
a great start, isn't it?
he bought himself a website book, and he built We Are the City. He built his first ever website. Little did he know that he'd have to be maintaining it 17 years old. But it was things like that. It was like getting the wrong accountant, and not fully understanding your numbers and your revenue. And
yeah, that must be really complicated, actually.
Yeah, if you've not got that kind of background. And it's also just understanding, I suppose, for my business, that we have a responsibility to kind of challenge sometimes as well. But although we set out to be lobbyists or campaigners, we're very much a platform that helps those lobbyists and campaigners reach women and to give them an audience and things like that. But it kind of got a bit more serious as the years went on, because when I first started, the conversation around women was just beginning. I think it was 2010. Lord Davies said, let's put more women on boards. And we'd been around for about 2 years then. And then you just see this floodgate of kind of women's initiatives within corporate firms, women's networks, events targeted at women. And we were like, whoa, we're on the ride. It's like getting on this massive boat, like that everyone was getting on. And then you get the not so positive side of it over the last years, where we've seen in violence against women and girls. And it's like, where we know that there's still pay inequality, we know that there's still health inequality and medical misogyny, and that there's just, and then when you get a little bit deeper, it isn't just putting on events around women and progressing their careers. It becomes a little bit more like there's a lot of things that are still really not unfair, that are still really, to get my words out in a minute, that are really not fair for women. So it's like, how do we play our part in kind of raising awareness around that as well? So
it's the wider society of it all, isn't it?
There's a lot of people like at the party now, that are doing so many amazing things for women, but it's just every time you think like we're on, you see numbers go up in a report, or there's more women on boards, or the first woman for this and the first woman for that, something will happen in the world, whether it's a war or pulls us back and just reminds us that we're just so not there yet. So there are, as I say, peaks and troughs in my work. Broader big societal picture, it's not good for women at all.
No.
And then you get these little glimmers of local hope, like, for example, when I do my awards, or, when job off the back of us, or something. So you get these lovely little pieces of joy, if you like.
Yeah.
Obviously, you've always got this big overarching thing that there is so much to do in terms of true equity for women.
It must be hard sometimes to focus on those smaller bits when you feel like maybe you're not making as much of a dent as you would want in that bigger picture.
With frustration all the time, like you see something, it's like, right, how do we help with that, or what can we do to help those women? And you can't do everything, and I think it's equally frustrating as well.
Having to realize you can't do everything is hard, for sure. Absolutely. So going kind of back to, obviously, before you started with We Are the City and everything, you said you worked in a lot of kind of bank technology and things like that. What was your experience like of working in the tech industry? What was the good, the bad, and the ugly, I guess we could say?
Most frustrating, Kat, is that when I look at the results of some of the research that I've done around the barriers women face in tech, they're not that dissimilar to the barriers that I face in tech.
It's just not really moved. It makes it worse, doesn't it?
I mean, when I look across my old dev departments, infrastructure departments, all the kind of more technical roles, there wasn't a woman in sight. Now you might see the odd one, but more so in the dev space, less in kind of infrastructure and stuff like that. So I think there has been a progression of sorts in terms of there are more women in tech. We still face an issue, right? The number's still 21%, depending on which report you've got, right?
It's still slow, isn't it? So slow.
I think there was something like there was I think it was 76,000 boys took GCSE tech last year against a backdrop of 17,000 girls.
Look at that.
So that shows you what the future's going to look like. So it's not like, we're getting there. We've got this pipeline of women coming into the industry. Time when we've got AI and when those diverse voices have never been more needed at the table. you know, we're going through what we're going through. But from my perspective, my tech career, I mean, I loved it. I worked, to say, in it's really important about who you work for, I think, in terms of
that's a good point.
And I worked for a number of gentlemen that were absolute sponsors of mine, kind of let me run amok a little bit, like in terms of ideas, innovation. They never clipped my wings at all, which is probably the best environment for me as someone who's neurodiverse as well. You know,
so you could really flourish as well. Yeah,
they let me come, you know, I'd have an idea and I'd be like, can I run with that? And they'd be like, feel your boots, you know. And the good thing was, when I fell over, they kind of picked me up, dusted me off, and go, okay, what did you learn by that?
I love that though, like trusting you to go for it, but being there when you needed them, you know.
There's a few of them, like male bosses, that kind of I mostly only work for men, because obviously it's tech, very few who senior women. But it was just really interesting that that's kind of what made me love my job so much. I had one boss that used to kind of drop me in to run and fix different departments, and you know, I love that, you know, like being thrown into a big problem, working out how we solve it, fixing some of the things, getting the people, you know, re-engaged and out of the weeds, and then you know, and they'd get on with it. So like, I really enjoyed that. But I'd done so many roles in tech. I mean, I started teaching software when I was 18. So you know, the software was just like, no one was using computers, software at that particular point. We were just shipping people into the city, and these are DOS based, you know, no mouse, no Windows, nothing like that. And then up through that kind of route. So I was, by the time I was 21, I think I was training, teaching about 21 different packages. I was programming in VBA. I was building databases and access. Went off, had my children, came back into and started in the project management office, into project manager, up through the PMO, kind of project manager, program director, took a sideways step, went into like chief of staff, global head of business management roles, and then on to COO. So, you know, you've
got a really wealth of experience then, like across lots of different areas of the industry. It's really interesting.
At one point, help desk migrations, but my first ever job was at Reader's Digest, and that's where I discovered data centers. I think that's what really sparked my interest, because when I was trainer for Reader's Digest, I was a training manager. One of the trainers went sick, and I said to my boss, I can teach that. And that's what started my teaching journey. But I remember going to Reader's Digest, and I remember going into the mainframe, like into the data centers of the day. And it was all these flashing lights. It was freezing cold. And I was just like, wow, there's like this big mainframe whirring. And I was just like, oh my God, this is where I want to be. So I'm kind of letting out my inner geek. But yeah, so, and again, totally the only girl in infrastructure at the time. But that really sparked my curiosity. And then I think, I'd say back then I had a skill, right? I could turn a computer on. None of my colleagues could. At 18, I'd learned, we literally got computers in my school. I think it was like the last year I was at school, so like 1988, when I left. And all these people working up in the city had no clue how they worked. And I did. So I used my skill. That's where it began.
Yeah, I love that. That's really cool. I love that was what sparked your interest as well, as data centers.
Lights and refrigeration.
Yeah, that's really cool. So what are your favourite aspects of your role now?
My awards winners.
Oh, that must be really like a really rewarding thing though.
You are one, right?
I think to be able to like do that though, and be able to celebrate, you know, so many different women. I mean, because how many have you done now? You must be like
Rising Stars is in its 11th year, so there's 11 winners of multi industries on the Rising Star side, and there are 950 technical, obviously of which you're one. So it's incredible. People that don't know about the awards, there are awards I run every single year. We look for women that are below senior management, so no large P&Ls, no large teams, to be nominated for the awards. And they open in June, by the way, every year. So we look for those women, they get nominated. We have a shortlisting, we have winners, we have a celebration. But the difference is with our awards is that we then put in a development program. So there's a WhatsApp group, as you know, that people are always popping. There's a day at Warwick that people get to go to. There's ad hoc events that we do, you know, that they're invited to. So we're constantly supporting them, opportunities to come back and speak at our global virtual conference like One Tech World at the start of the year. So we're really invested in those women. So that's the best part of my job. I think shining a spotlight on women, and somebody's nominated them, right? So very grateful to nominate for our award. And those ladies that self-nominate, I love that as well.
Yeah, me too.
And then, you know, being on that stage, giving them the award, but then seeing what happens, where that goes next, is just amazing. New jobs, new opportunities, speaking, writing books, setting up their own businesses. I think it just gives them the confidence. You know, they're marvelous.
Recognition that they can do it. Yeah.
And it's just that big megaphone that goes, look at her, like she's amazing. So yeah, absolutely the best part of my job.
Yeah, and I agree as well about it being such a different like awards, because it's not, like you say, it's not just an awards, it is an investment in the people in them. And you know, I love coming to Durham and doing the knowledge day there, and joining loads of the virtual events, you know, like One Tech World and stuff. It's been really great, and just that community of women is, you know, so helpful.
And I think for me, what I love is so many of you have become friends. Like there are friends groups now within Tech Women, like that go out for lunch and that see each other for dinner and that share opportunities. And I
think that is really lovely. I
just absolutely love that. So
yeah, I love that I've got a few that are coming on the podcast and stuff as well. Just like loads of different ways to collaborate. It's great.
That's the thing, and that's my big thing. Pay it forward, help people, be kind. You know, it's just be good human beings and lift as you climb.
So you've talked a lot about how much you loved celebrating other people's achievements. What about some of your own achievements that you're proud of?
The biggest one is probably up here on the wall. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh yeah, I see.
Yeah, there we go. That was my proudest day. Never in a million years did I think that I would get an OBE. I mean,
congratulations.
To me. So that was absolutely amazing. It was very special to me. I got to take my parents to Buckingham Palace, you know, and we grew up on a council estate, right? My dad was a road sweeper. My mum worked in a print factory. We come from very, very humble beginnings. And to go to Buckingham Palace, you know, with them. And I mean, obviously I'm a consequence of their hard work and their always telling me that didn't give me much in terms of financial kind of, you know, education or anything like that. But they just backed me all the way with my crazy ideas. And even when I left the big job, they were like, okay, what are you doing? Is this the right thing? But always supportive. So that was wonderful. That was the first one. And I'm lucky I've won quite a few awards, which is why I set up my own awards, because I want to give them back.
Give that back.
You know, I don't think it's fair that I've got some and that I can't give.
No.
And then obviously the other one, which I think is sitting here. They're all around my desk.
They're all around your desk. Yeah. I thought it would be that.
And that one came completely out of the blue. Oh God, I cried. I was given an honorary doctorate by Warwick University, which again,
congratulations again.
Absolutely. But you know what's really cute about that one is it was actually one of my award winners that wrote to Warwick.
Oh, that's lovely.
To ask that they give me an honorary degree, and then got loads of other of the award winners involved. And I think I almost lobbied the university.
Lobbied for it, yeah.
The winners gave me something back that they knew that it was all a chip on my shoulder that I never went to university and that I never got the education because of, you know, financially what was going on in my particular home life at the time. So they'd always evaded me, and they knew it would complete me. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it was like
it's something you've got
made me immediately smart or academic or anything like that. It was just so special to me. I've got a little reel that I made on my Instagram account, and even now if I watch it back, it makes me cry. It was apart from having my kids and getting married and stuff like that, it was one of the most important days of my life.
Yeah, and it should be. That's amazing. Yeah, I love that. What would be your advice? So we've talked about some of the challenges, obviously, of someone starting their own company. What would be some of your advice as well?
I think it's like anything, right? It's do your homework. What have you come up with? Is it a niche? You know, is it going to solve a problem? That's the basics of business, right? So who else is in the space at the moment? What are they doing? Can you do it a different way? Can you do it better? You know, I think, my business was started with a lot of social purpose behind it. And I think over the last kind of 5 years, that's the way businesses have gone. They're trying to find their social purpose. So I think to start with that in mind is always good, because if it's a product or anything like that, people, it's an emotional buy. Do you know what I mean? Like we probably get as much support as we get at WeAreTechWomen, because those sponsors or those corporates want to help those women. Do you see what I mean? So there's a reason. Yeah. So I think, I definitely think, do your homework, test it, trial it. Start off small. I think everyone should have a business, even if it's a side hustle, even if you've woke up from a dream and had a dream that you had a business, go register the domain, right? Go buy it. It's 30 quid or whatever.
It's not that bad.
Protect the social handles. You never know, you might do something with it at some point. I think COVID taught us that, that we should have multiple different revenue streams, no matter how we scale them. So I would just say, surround yourself with people that are perhaps a year onto your journey, because they can give you great help. So that network is absolutely key. Any kind of incubators or, those kind of programs that support female-led businesses, try and get yourself a place on one of them. It's not even so much as what they teach you, it's about being with other founders and those shared experiences, and someone may have tried something that you're going to try. So it's all, I think that network piece is really, really important.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that. And I think obviously you're saying as well about it being a social mission. I think if it's something you're really passionate about, that probably helps you on the days that are harder, where you are facing challenges and barriers. If you've got that passion, it probably keeps you going as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So my last question really is, what change do you want to see in the tech industry, and how do we get there? Which might be a big kind of issue to unpack.
So what would I like to see? I'd like to see more women in tech. I'd like to see more girls taking STEM subjects. I'd like to see more women CEOs. I'd like to see more new technologies where women are at the helm. I'd like to see more women, for example, in AI. So ultimately, more women in tech. That is the dream. That's what I'd like to see, where it's not a shock that you see, emerging technology and it's a woman behind it. Everyone doesn't go, oh my God, it's a woman.
It becomes the norm. Yeah.
It becomes the norm. Yeah, I'd love to see that in the world.
That would be wonderful. I would love that too. There was one other thing that you said you wanted to talk about though, which was a survey that you're working on at the moment.
Okay.
If you wanted to talk a bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done a few years back, we did a piece of research with Ipsos Mori and the Tech Talent Charter, which talked about the barriers that women face in tech. And this year, we're embarking on a new study, which the hypothesis of which is that if we can prove that by companies accelerating the career progression of women in tech into more senior positions, that it will actually have economic impact in terms of their bottom line. So we're doing a survey. It's open to the 3rd of April, where we're looking at women that we're looking for participants for women that have left the tech industry and gone to a different industry, that are perhaps in the tech industry but a little bit dissatisfied with what they're doing, and senior women that we can learn from, why they still, if they're going to exit, what does that look like? Is it a portfolio? That kind of thing. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that, because the results of that will be presented at our festival, which goes which happens on the 26th of June.
Amazing.
So look out for that. We've also got, I don't know whether you're aware, but we've also got One Tech World. That happens at the end of March. So, and that's free, our big global conference, 4 stages of content, everything from AI to cyber to women's health, career progression. So
yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, the more we can encourage people to sign up to that, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa. It's been such a pleasure having you on.